Thanks, Chamberlain. Well, good morning, good evening, wherever the world you might be watching from. It's the trading day right after the MPC decision right here in Lagos, Nigeria, to hike more than expected as the CBN moves to tame inflation, stubbornly high inflation, that is. Let's get to the top stories that set your agenda now. Starting with oil prices, it fell for a third straight session today on expectations the Federal Reserve could keep U.S. interest rates higher for longer due to sustained inflation. And we see that reflected in the numbers there. $82.45 a barrel. That's what we're seeing for Brent crude this morning. 0.05%, a marginal loss there. WTI crude, that's $78.16 a barrel, down 0.06%. So we're seeing WTI still staying lower, below that $80 mark. Prices settled about 1% lower. That was yesterday as Fed policymakers said that the central bank could wait several more months to ensure that inflation really is back on track to its 2% target before cutting rates. And back here, let's get a check on the FX market. Now we see the Naira again at NAFEX, 23 Naira 91 kobo. So we're seeing more bullish sentiment for the Naira at this time. And it appears after every MPC meeting, the Naira kind of gains. And so we're seeing 1,465 Naira, 0.22% up. That's for NAFEM. And for NAFEX, 1,478 Naira. So it's below that 1,500 psychological level, so 1.59%. That's the gain for the Naira than the FX market. Let's bring you some other stories now. The Nigerian Exchange signed a memorandum of understanding with Mobilist, a UK-based development finance consultancy. Mobilist comes into the partnership to boost activities at the capital market by supporting product promoters and investment through technical assistance. The sectors to be focused on include technology, transport, energy, amongst others. Representatives from Mobilist and the NGX sealed the partnership at an evening event in Lagos, southwest Nigeria. Take a listen.
One of the fundamental things that we need to do in this market is to find an enabling environment or a conduit where international flows or capital can come into this our market and be able to help us address infrastructure gap, food security, and basically catalyze and grow the economy. To us, this is a very unique opportunity to also key into the vision of the present administration. The president has been very bullish about trying to grow the Nigerian economy to a $1 trillion economy in the next few years. We in the capital market and NGX actually believe that that is possible. And with this MOU and the activities that has happened today, we feel that it provides the enabling environments and market confidence to attract the much needed foreign capital into the market.
This is the start of a time where we're talking with potential collaborators, and that's the point of this event here. Hopefully amongst the crowd here there are people who want to work with us. The team will be talking to those people over the next week and then developing those ideas over time as we go further. One of the really interesting things I think that they're offering is not just the investment. The investment is important, but investment, to be honest, in some ways is a small part of this. There is then technical advice and research, and what that does is bring new ideas into the system and to help people think about new types of products, new ways of operating, or trying to unpick problems that they've looked at but haven't quite found a solution to.
And back to the latest MPC decision now. We see the benchmark interest rate this year, 750 basis points. That's what we've had for all the meetings this year. Let's listen to the central bank governor.
The committee's decisions are as follows. 1, raise the MPR by 150 basis points to 26.25%. from 24.75%. 2, retain the asymmetric corridor around the MPR to plus 100 to minus 300 basis points. 3, retain the cash reserve ratio of deposit money banks at 45%. And 4, retain the liquidity ratio at 30%.
And there you have it, 150 basis points higher than what most experts expected at this time. But let's get to the first conversation now. We see the EU, they have new rules for exports of cocoa, and that's set to take effect at the end of this year. This legislation aims to ensure that cocoa beans imported into the region are not linked to deforestation. Well, let's talk to Mr. Akin Laoye, now the CEO, Managing Director, FTN Cocoa Processors PLC, joining me right here in the studio. Great to have you. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you very much.
First of all, before we get into the cocoa industry at this time, I'd like to get your reaction to this latest hike by the MPC, 150 basis points. Some analysts were expecting a kind of hawkish, dovish tone, from the CBN at this time, but it's full-on hawkish at this point. So talk to me about how you're seeing the way the new leadership of the CBN is handling taming inflation at this time.
Well, let me say clearly that the CBN governor does not have a choice in this. They've been improving things. We can see that his hands are on the buttons, and he doesn't really have a choice, but it's not really auguring well for those of us in the manufacturing sector. And indeed, it's also having some kind of transfer inflation to the citizens. So, but to be honest, they will continue to do this kind of balancing act to find a way around it, but it's tough.
Yeah, quite a tough job, and
definitely
from where I'm sitting, I don't think I want to wear that hat at this point, as a hat of the CBN government, because
well,
looking at the situation on ground
it's a tough one.
And we'd like to see more, I guess, from the fiscal side of things, because we're seeing all the action coming from the monetary side.
Yeah. Well, again, too, I believe that they're working on those things. The truth is, the economy has been in a bad shape. So I don't really envy the job these guys are doing. They have to do a lot of irrigation. They have to do a lot of cleansing, draining the swamp, and all those kind of things. So we'll see all these things happening. By the kind of people we have in governance, I mean, the finance minister, I believe he understands what the economy is all about and knows what to do, and working with his team. Maybe some more supervision to the people working with them will make everything fall in line. We'll see.
And with what we've seen so far, with inflation and, all the macro headwinds we're seeing at this time, I'm seeing that this government is going to clock 1 year this month.
Yeah.
So I want to know what we're seeing right now. Are we asking for too much if we want change faster in this period?
To be honest, we are not asking for too much, because this thing is directly impacting lives. People are suffering. To that extent, I would not say we're asking for too much. And the president himself said that he applied for the job. He got it. And that we should not pity him. So we expect him to walk on waters. Whatever how he's going to do it, we don't know. Because this thing is affecting our daily living. That's where the issue is. Otherwise, if you want to look at it from the point of view of how things have been, one would say give them some time. But you see, people are already dying out of hunger. That's where the issue is. So we have to look at that and find a balance.
Right.
As soon as possible.
A balance is definitely needed at this time. But let's get to the cocoa industry now. We're seeing this new rule from the EU, and at this point, it looks like they're trying to discourage deforestation, at this time. And I know you play in that market. Talk to me about how this new rule is going to impact the industry.
Definitely, it will, especially because in Nigeria, we do not get to arrange things in the way it should be. Deforestation is something that should be a concern to everybody because of these climate change issues we are talking about. It has to do with the environment and everything. Our problem here in Nigeria is that we lack monitoring and proper regulations. So what they are saying is, okay, as far as I'm concerned, let's regulate the way our forests are managed. People do reckless deforestation without regards to climate change, without regards to what's going on in society. That's not how it should be. And I think government should monitor the reserves, monitor the way the environment works. Everything in Nigeria is why we are having issues. We start agitating. I mean, other countries are already aligning. People are already having regulations around how farms are managed. People manage, look at Nigeria. People just go into the bush, pull the trees down, use it to make charcoal and export. Everybody's doing whatever they like. That's not right. For me, it's good if we can follow it, and then let's see what we can do to make sure that the farms, the forests are preserved. Then we organize the way we arrange our farms. It doesn't affect cocoa alone. It affects coffee. It affects even cattle rearing and all those kind of things. We need to arrange our society.
And from the picture you just painted, now, how easy or tough do you think compliance will be?
It's going to involve a lot of things. It's tough. Number one, we have smallholder farmers. There are a lot of things you need to put into place so that you can confirm that you are not bringing your product from a deforested zone, right? There's need for some kind of GSP coordination and all those kind of things. So it will cost some money. When you look at the farmers, they're like peasants. The incentive to do those stuff is not there for them. So some kind of support, some kind of farmer education, and maybe others' education can help in this place. It's going to be some major one. Even for people like us who end up using the product, we are beginning to see customers asking for the EU DRO certification. That means we also have to pay attention to what our farmers are doing. That's an extra cost on top of the headwinds we are facing. Infrastructure gaps, high cost of money. This is choking.
Talking about high cost of money, it's gotten even higher.
Higher, and you don't even know what it will be in the next month, just because government is trying to arrest the situation in the economy. So it's tough. It's really a tough situation now for anybody.
Looking at the industry, definitely, and how much revenue Nigeria gets from cocoa. What would you say needs to be done at this time to rev up that revenue? Because at the end of the day, we're trying to diversify the economy, move away from oil, and all of that. So how much can cocoa bring to the table at this point?
Cocoa has a lot to bring. And I've said it in several forums to government. The government needs to be intentional and focused. I think our problem here is the crude oil. It's giving us headache. It's not making us to think correctly. 22 states in Nigeria can grow cocoa. I don't see any reason why, in a time where we have massive unemployment, why government will not make sure attention is paid to that, make sure the land is available, encourage guys who will go into cocoa farming. You have young people who can go there. Look at the price of cocoa today. It got to a massive price that people now see it as serious gold. Okay, so if we had increased our farms, the output will have increased, and that means more money for Nigeria.
Right, and definitely talking about more money, we see the agric minister there saying that Nigeria's cocoa export accounted for about 29% of the total agric export for 2023. So is that a number we're impressed with? 29%?
I'm not impressed, and I'm surprised he's talking that way. Whatever number you're saying here is because of the spike in cocoa price. It has nothing to do with output. I think the concern should be the output. What exactly are we doing? So giving that number to me is just escapist. They're just trying to grandstand and it's not giving a true picture of what things are. And I think those in government should understand the nuances in the sectors, in the economy. Otherwise, we'll be going in a circus.
And we keep talking about adding value to our exports at this time. Have we seen any improvement, so far when it comes to adding value to a product like cocoa?
The value addition is the most critical point, pressure point. Incidentally, that's what I do. And I don't see government giving the kind of support that sector requires. Investment in a typical cocoa processing plant is very high. Like I speak to you today, the average investment for a 20,000 tons capacity factory is $20 million before the working capital. That's a lot of money. So you see, we can't develop that space without some kind of support. We're not asking government to give gift of money. What we just want is some kind of enabling environment that will make policies suitable for the people in that industry. And these are verifiable things. So I think government needs to sit down, engage the people in the sector, and see how we can get a roadmap to where we are headed. Right. Because value addition is what can help us. Apart from the farming, the next point is the value addition set. Because exporting the cocoa beans is just, we're not doing good to our massive population that are unemployed.
Because the money from exporting cocoa is not bad, but I hear the chocolate money That's it. That's
where the
fun
money is. That's right.
Exactly. Thank you so much. It was great having your perspective.
Thank you.
Today, Mr. Akin Ilayo is the CEO, MD of FTN Cocoa Processors. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me. Thanks.
All right, we'll take a quick break now. When we come back, we'll take the conversation further. Find out where venture capitalist money is going in a high interest environment. That's for the moment. Just stay with us. All right, it's time to take a look at how venture capitalists are seeing investment in high-interest environments in Africa. Joining us now is Maria Rotilu. She's a general partner at OpenSeed VC, joining me via Zoom from the UK. Great to have you on the show.
Thank you very much. Great to be here.
So I'm pretty sure, venture capitalists like you follow inflation, FX issues and interest rates in African economies. And, we know just yesterday the MPC raised rates by 150 basis points. How do you see the latest hike in Nigeria?
Yeah, no, great question. I think if we think about venture capital and what OpenSeed is trying to build, we're trying to back experienced operators who are creating value with that initial capital and support to getting them to do that. I think if you think about an interest rate environment that's quite higher, it's pretty much limited liquidity in the economy. What that means from a, capital allocation standpoint is that most capital allocators are probably going to debt. And you can see, in terms of the falling allocation to venture capital more globally, it's getting tougher and tougher to raise venture capital in this climate because most people are putting capital in, debt instruments that kind of give high yields, which is deliberate because governments are trying to implement these monetary policies to reduce the liquidity in the market and kind of take a hold of inflation. But there's a flip side to this. On the other hand, this is the perfect time for innovators, for operators, for people who have spotted problems to begin to solve them using technology. In this kind of climate, cost-saving solutions really, really catch on. In this type of climate, value creation solutions, expanding markets, giving people ways to earn more, to cut their costs, these become even more important in this climate. With every single, economic issue where you have high interest rates, where you have a downturn, you see some incredible startups going up. You see the gig economy coming off of the back of the fact that people were looking to save costs. You see shifting consumer behavior. So while this is a very difficult environment, if you think about the impact of just people's discretionary income, people's ability to earn, I think on the flip side, this is an incredible time for innovators to think and say, how do we create value in terms of reducing the costs using technology? How do we create value in terms of opening up markets for local entrepreneurs to global markets? These are a few thoughts.
Right. I guess, according to you, this is not the time to pack your bags and go back to your village, right? It's time to get innovative at this time. But what kind of solutions are, VCs looking to pile money into in Africa in 2024?
Yeah, that's a great question. It depends on the VC's thesis. I would say that for us at OpenSeed, we look at three major areas: the future of commerce, future of work, and future of health. If you think about commerce, Africa just contributes, I think, 3% to global commerce, or is it Nigeria at this point? But you see that it's a very low number in terms of our contribution to global commerce. And I think that technology is a key lever for this. So we are looking for innovative technologies that make it simple to access. It brings discovery, it brings transparency, it brings efficiencies, helping people who are creating both digital and physical exportable services, creating a technology layer that makes this easier for them and helps us really globally compete. I always say, Africa does not exist in a silo. Nigeria does not exist in a silo. Every single government is trying to implement policies to make sure that their economies are stable. I think we are in a very incredible point, despite the difficulties, for us to begin to look at the problems and see them as opportunities to create value and create, economic impact as well. And from a future of work perspective, we continuously hear the data that says that Africa, 1 out of 4 people are going to be African by 2050. We have the lowest age, median age, most emerging economies have really aging populations, but we have this young capital. And yes, there's a problem and a discussion to be had around the quality of the human capital. But I think again, technology brings an interesting viewpoint, because now there's a leveling in terms of the access, in terms of the information, in terms of the technology that can actually essentially get people being upskilled and offering value globally and creating that value that brings inflows into the country, that creates value for all, both investors and local economies alike.
All
So
right.
yeah, those are a few things on the open seat side.
Okay, so what are the key elements, investors look for when considering, funding, say, a startup at this time?
At the very early stage, which is where we play, we are first investors in experienced operators just launching their technology companies. I would say that for us, it's really about the team. The reason why we optimize for operators, and we define them as people who either have been at high growth technology startups, who've built startups of their own, and who can build technology companies, at least the initial versions of it. We really think that it comes down to the team. A great operator identifies a big problem, and they have the ability to be able to execute on it. I think that if you think about how investors think about what good looks like, it really boils down to the team. But there are two other things we also look at: the market opportunity. Venture capital is not a lifestyle business. Oftentimes it looks at really large outcomes. So it's very important that I guess, impact financially and both economically is significant, because it is a product, a financial product. It does have intentions to return to its original investors by investing in incredible startups and founders at the earliest stages. So I would say it's a combination of the team and the market and their ability to actually tackle that market and solve a big problem that creates economic value for investors and the economy.
And looking at the state of things at this time, do VCs still have the time to, guide, startups, even though they've invested in these startups?
Yes, some VCs have really incredible approaches to founder support, but there's also VCs that believe that the best founders don't need support. I think no matter how great you are as a founder, you will take all the support you can get. And one of the fresh approaches that we've brought from an open seed VC standpoint is, even as we invest, we have a community of incredible operators. These are software engineers, these are product managers, these are people who've actually executed at global tech companies, who are there to support you and the founders with insight, with actual help, with things like recruiting, with things like code review, with things like product review. I think that things like this, or models like this with VC, is going to be critical, especially in this time, because it's so difficult to raise in the early stages. And to be honest, if you're trying to build anything noteworthy that's impactful, you would need all the help you can get from experts who've gone ahead and done it ahead of you.
And definitely cash flow is really important at this time, for startups and most of these tech companies. But, talk to me about common mistakes, some of these startups make or are making currently, making it hard for you to actually, invest in them.
Yeah, that's if we go through all the mistakes, we will not have enough time, but I'll touch on just a few. I would say that the first and most common mistake I tend to see is founders solving a problem that's not necessarily a problem. They think it's a problem, but the customers don't think it's a problem. So a lot of founders sometimes project their own passions and excitements on the market. The best founders I know have anchored on a problem. They've looked and said, this is a problem. The other thing I would say is that it being a problem is just the beginning. It has to be a problem that's recurring. It has to be a problem that's painful enough. It has to be a problem that you can monetize. It has to be a problem that you can build a business out of. There's a common saying that says that there might be a gap in the market, but is there a market in the gap? I really think that the best founders anchor on a problem and they iterate and they execute and they experiment, and they see that there is a problem here that's large enough to not just house a problem, but also a market and a sustainable business model on the top of that. If you look at the successful technology companies we've seen today, companies like InterSwitch, companies like Paystack, like Flutterwave, you've seen a lot of fintechs that have come out. They all stem from a problem. Someone woke up and thought and said, there is a problem here, and maybe there's a business here, and we shall experiment on that. And it got to where it is, over time. So I think those are a few problems that I tend to see in my work as a VC.
Right. I guess if you identify that problem, make sure it's a real problem. Definitely. Well, thank you so much. It was great having your perspective. Maria Rotilu, General Partner at Open Seed VC. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
All right, let's get a quick check on the markets. Now, let's see how the markets closed yesterday. And yes, it's a green close. 0.11% for the NGX. The day of the decision there by the MPC, raising rates by 150 basis points, and we see a green close, even though we've had negative closes so far. 61 billion, that was what was added to the market cap. Let's look at the volume and trading activity now. We see it's mostly subdued for yesterday. 45% down for volume. Value, 5.15 billion stocks traded, 23% down. So we're seeing lower activity there in the market yesterday compared to the previous trade. Top trades, GTCO, 40.64 million traded. Access Score, so it's all financial services for the top trades by volume yesterday. So now, definitely, the market, a green close right after the MPC made that rate announcement, and we'll be looking out for how the market, plays out for the rest of the week. We know it's been negative closes for the week so far that we've had in this market, and we'll see if the bulls will come out and play today. And so much to look forward to. And this week, we'll still have the GDP report for the first quarter of 2024. We'll see how that's going to shape market sentiment going forward. But that's it from me on Business Morning. Markets are open now. We'll give a summary of closing numbers later. I'm Ladi Williams, and it's back to the Sunrise Daily team.